Okay, I'm back a little bit. See if this thing doesn't fall. I left off with 4x cubed over 4x cubed. When you take a look at this, please don't write 0. If you have the same term top and bottom, it's a 1. It's a 1, okay? Next, when I have something like this, now this is different because it's leading with a negative. It's leading with a negative, so now this is a critical piece. If you have a negative, you have to take out a negative. That's part of your GCF. So I'm going to ask myself the same question. What is the largest number that goes into all three of those? Well, if you take a look, 3 goes into this, 3 goes into this, 3 goes into this. Great. Let's take out a 3. But I'm going to take out a negative 3. If the leading coefficient, the first guy, if that's a negative, take out a negative. Well, they all have AB. They all have AB. So I'm going to take out an A and a B, but the smallest exponent of each. So I've got A squared, B to the first. Now remember what I said? I've got this guy, the GCF, and I got to do the leftovers. How do you find the leftovers? Divide. I divide by the GCF. Divide by negative 3A squared B. Negative 3A squared B. And I get this. Divide this, I get 6. That's positive. 6A squared B squared. If you divide a positive by a negative, you get a negative. Negative 2B. And I don't know why I put this little thing there, but plus 5A. The B's cancel out. You're just left with 1. Okay? That's a little bit more difficult because you have to factor out the GCF is a negative. Next. Factoring by grouping. So I have this. Well, now it's not that real easy thing where you can just pull something out. So what I said was, if you have this problem, which has got now 4 terms in it, that's kind of a giveaway, 4 terms. Group the terms that have a common binomial, something like a 5 or a 4 or 2, or a variable that they have a common variable. So group those things by the parentheses, group them by parentheses. Factor each of those little groups, and I'll show you this example in a second, but here's the key. Put a plus in between your 2 groups. Put a plus sign. Okay, well, let's do it. Okay, so sometimes you have to rearrange them. This one, you don't. It's already there for us. xy plus 5x minus 4y minus 20. Notice, these have an x in common. Well, that's good. So I'm going to group them together. xy plus 5x. I said put a plus in the middle. Plus. Well, now, obviously, if you're grouping them, the last 2 are going to be grouped together. Minus 4y minus 20. Once you have the groups established, now you factor each one of these groups. Well, what is common with this? What's the GCF? Well, they only have a letter. It's an x. Divide by an x, you end up with y plus 5. Plus, now remember, if you lead with a negative, you got to take out a negative. You got to take out a negative. Well, what's the biggest number that goes into both? Well, it's 4. So I'm going to take out this negative, and I'm going to find out what's left over. And I have y plus 5. Well, that, by the way, that's the key. If you have y plus 5 over here, you better have y plus 5 over here in the parentheses. That's what you're going to be taking out. Now, by the way, a plus and a minus, when you multiply those 2 things together, it's a minus. Take this and make it a big old minus. So now, what do these 2 things, what do these 2 groups have in common? Y plus 5. Take it out. Y plus 5. Take it out. Well, if I take it out, it's like, that's the GCF. It's like I'm dividing by y plus 5. Y plus 5. Well, look at this. Those cancel out. What's your leftovers? Remember your leftovers? This is your GCF. What's your leftovers? Well, that's x. These go away, minus 4. And that's factoring by grouping, a little bit more complex and complicated, but not bad, okay? And again, for the video, you can start and stop it. Take a look. Okay, 6.2 review. Factoring polynomials that have 3 terms. Now we don't have 4 terms, we got 3 terms, okay? Now if I take a look at this, I've got some rules. Rule number 1, put 2 parentheses down. That's factoring. Factoring. Put some parentheses down, okay? You're gonna do the pairs of the factors for C. Notice this is a trinomial, 3 terms, tri. X squared plus bx plus c. You're gonna do the factors of C, all the factors. So if I said 4, you'd say the factors are 1 and 4. 1 times 4 gives you 4. 2 times 2 gives you 4. Those are factors. Do the factors of C, and then you're gonna do combinations, trial and error, to see what's going to give you the middle guy, the B. Can't really see this, but I said foiled it to check. So once you get it all done, foil it, check it, see if it works. Okay. X squared plus 6x plus 8, step 1. Put 2 parentheses down. The next thing that you do, see how this has an x squared? Put x and x. X and x, that's pretty simple, okay? The factors of 8 that add up to 6. Notice the signs. The factors of 8 that add up to a positive 6. So here's the factors of 8. Well, it's 1 and 8. 8 and 1 if you want to go crazy. Negative 1, negative 8. 2, 4, negative 2, negative 4. You don't have to write them in reverse order, but I want to show you this. It's going to come up a little bit later on in the course. But here you go. So now add them. Well, this is 9. Well, this is 6. Well, that's what I want. I don't want negative 6, because if I add those 2 together, I get negative 6. I don't want negative. I want positive. Those are my 2 factors. This is a positive 2 and a positive 4. Watch. Positive 2, positive 4. Done. Done. That thing is factored. Factored. Step 1, parentheses. Step 2, split up the x, or the y, or the a. It doesn't have to be x. The next thing, do the factors of C that add up to B. Okay, here we go. Take a look at this. Now, like I said, it doesn't have to be an x, it could be a y. This is what I have y, so I have 2 parentheses. Now again, this only works right now, and I'll start to show you something else. It only works right now when you have a leading coefficient of 1. Of 1, which is what we're working on right now. It's kind of a build-up thing. Math is like building blocks. You start with something, and you keep on adding layers to it, okay? So the next thing I'm gonna do is put y and y. Okay, cool. So now this is good. I'm going to do the factors of negative 99 that add up to negative 2. Now I could do this, negative 1 and 99, 1 and negative 99, because now I have to do both of those. Because if you, again, multiply, factors mean you multiply. Multiply those things together, you get a negative, okay? Now I could keep going through this, and I could get negative 3 and 33, 3 and negative 33. Notice if I add these things together, I still get a big number. I want a small number. This is a big number if I add them together. I need a small number. So these numbers of factors have to be close together. Let's do 9 and 11. Minus 9 and 11, 9 and minus 11. Now, if I add these 2 things together, I get 2. Is that what I want? Nope, I want negative 2. If I add these together, I get negative 2. That's what I want. My factors are positive 9, negative 11. You just take those things and put them in. Again, if there's no sign there, it's a positive. It's a positive. Okay? Clearly that was blank, but we got another one. Now, what if there's a variable on each end, bookends of this thing? What if there was bookends? So now this is what you do. Start with the same thing. X and X. By the way, if there's a y squared on the bottom, just do y and y in the back. Because now all you're looking for, what are the factors of 6 that add up to -5? The factors of 6, factors mean multiply, that add up to -5. Well, let's do it. 1, 6, -1, -6. 2, 3, -2, -3. Now I'm looking to see the factors that when I add them together, give me -5. Well, look at this. -5. Well, that's good. Just plug them in. -2, -3. Done. Complete. That's if you have bookends of variables that are x squareds or y squareds. Just split them up. Pretty simple. Split them up. X and x, y and y. Then you can work on the numbers. That's what I would suggest. Clearly, that's a different thing. So now, what if you have something that looks like this, and the leading coefficient isn't 1, it's this -16. Ugh, that is gross. Here's what you do. You ask yourself, can I take out a GCF? Can I take out a number? There's no letters, variables that are in all three, but can I take out a number? Does 16 go into each one of these things? And the answer is, oh, you betcha. And if it leads with a -16, remember, take out a negative. If the leading coefficient is negative, take out a negative. So I think I got that on the next slide. Of course I don't. So if I take a look at this, I'm going to take out a -16. And remember what I said, what's left? You got the GCF and then leftovers. Okay, so now I divide each one of these things by -16. So I get t squared, those cancel out, minus t, -6. Now I don't care so much about this -16. I've already factored him out, but I have to do this. Now look at what this says. I got to do the factors of -6, so I got this. Remember, 2 parentheses, t and t, not an explosion, but t and t, split those up. The factors of -6 that add up to, what's that number? 1. If there's no number there, it's a 1. The factors of -6 that add up to -1. Well, the factors of -6, well, it's -6 and, or -1 and 6, 1 and -6, -2 and 3, 2 and -3. Well, look at this. If I add them together, I get -1. That's what I want. That's what I want. What in the world happened there? We're back. So just plug these in. +2, -3. Okay? That's if the leading coefficient is not 1. Try to factor out a GCF. Okay? I'll do another video on the next section.